What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Good morning, gang. It's good to see several of you here hanging out, I think. One or two of you here hanging out. Let me reload the page here so I can catch up to your chats, see what's going on the old YouTube here as I'm doing this. We'll let some people trickle in as I just do wind up an intro here this morning, but appreciate everybody coming in, hanging out, growing the channel, obviously. Feel free to spread the word out there, guys. Retweet me, hit the likes. I'm not great at the whole social media thing, the whole promotion thing. We're kind of soft launching this whole deal right now. We're kind of just, I don't want to say half-assing it, because I'm putting a lot of work into getting all the content out there and everything, but the actual spreading the word part, the actual business orientated end of this whole thing, who knows where that's headed. But right now, if you guys are talking MLB DFS, let people know that this is going on. Spread the word. Tell people out there. Like and subscribe, as Larry C. just points out. Subscribe to the channel so that you get notified when we go live and when we have new content, etc., 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 as we always say over on the other channels when we're doing the bigger shows. So hit the subscribe button there. Hit the likes. Those, I assume, help me out. I don't really know what they actually do. I assume it helps the YouTube algorithm somewhere along the way. That's what we always said, right? So let's dive into this one. I'm glad that I checked last night. It's Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day, by the way, to everybody out there. If we've got any service people joining us, watching later, thank you so much for your service, your commitment to the country. Thank you to my father, who served the country, and my uncles who did, and everybody else out there who did. Have a very, very happy Memorial Day, and hopefully everybody's out there enjoying it. But what my point was going to be is that I'm really glad I checked the schedule, because I had forgotten that today was a day off and probably an afternoon slate, so we could have missed this one. I checked it late last night and altered my plans for the day. So let's dive in. We've got a good 6-gamer on deck. I think it's another day where we're going to have a slate that's probably going to be one with some bats and some big outbursts of hitting. It's not the deepest pitching slate in the world, but I do think we've got some options, and we've got some interesting ones to talk about. So we'll go through it. As you can see, one of the first ones out of the gate, the visiting starter in this first game, the Guardians at Orioles game, Logan Allen. I'm kind of interested in this kid, and I've got a little bit of tepid interest on the other side too in Tyler Wells. What I don't like about Wells is the price, $9,700. That's a bit aggressive for me, for a guy like Tyler Wells, but he's been performing pretty well, and the Guardians have been really bad. So I do think there's interest there, but the guy who's projecting better out of the two is actually Logan Allen going up against the Orioles here. I'm a little curious about the projection I'm getting, because that is a monster number for this kid. I do think the kid's talented. I do think he's got, enough to get through this Orioles lineup to keep them a little bit in check here, but that's a big number for a kid that's got a 22.6% strikeout rate, a 3.31 ERA. He's only allowed a 2.05% home run rate, but there has been some hard hits there. 89.9 miles an hour average exit velo, a 10.6% barrel rate, 44.2% hard hits. So he gets by. He's a very good control command pitcher. He's got a very nice little arsenal of stuff, but he's not a flamethrower. He works in like the 91, 92 mile an hour range. So it'll be really interesting to see how he comes through. I wouldn't push him quite as aggressively as the projection that you guys can see there might suggest. I'm going to have him. I'll probably roll with him a little bit stronger than I would suggest maybe, the non-risk averse in the crowd do. And certainly, for every share of Logan Allen that you grab, maybe grab a couple of Orioles bats on in a different lineup as well, because I do think there's upside for their lineup coming back the other way. But I do like Allen in the long term. I do think he's a talented young pitcher, and I could see him paying off the salary, especially at 81 on DK. That's a nice price for this pitcher. I think he can pay that off today. 93 on FanDuel, I'll take my shots. You don't have to. Let me take the risk, and that's fine. But I do think there's upside there. Tyler Wells, like I was saying on the other side, what I like about Wells, he's pitching pretty well. God, that was clunky. He pitches good. He's been good this season, right? 57 innings, 9 starts. He's got a nice 24.8% strikeout rate, only 5.5% walks, 0.84 whip. That's really nice. There's a little bit of batting average on balls and play help in that number, of course, but he's limiting free passes. He doesn't get himself into trouble, and he's been able to pitch his way out of trouble. Nice little 11.6% swinging strike rate. The 25% strikeout rate is good. He's allowed too much premium contact. You can see the 11.9% barrels down here. Oh, you know what? I forgot that I'm in this view. Let me just change this up so you guys see. There we go. Is this view better for you guys, whoever's out there, Larry and whoever else might be watching? I like this view a little bit better. I think it gives you a little bit better of a look at the screen. I had forgotten to change it there, but either way, Just let me know what you guys prefer. If the zoom looks a little bit better, yeah, this one's better. Like I thought so. So we'll get it all ironed out here. But as I was saying, what I like about Wells is nice little strikeout rate, not getting himself in trouble. Looks better on the TV. All right, cool. Yeah, it gives it a little bit more spacing there. You don't have to see my ugly mug quite as big, which is always a plus. So yeah, Wells is giving up a little bit of premium contact. 11.9% barrels, a little bit too much there. 42.4% hard hits, 90.6 mile an hour of average exit velo, and the ugly 5.96% home run rate. That's what he needs to fade here. The good thing for him is that he's facing a Guardians lineup that just has not hit for much power at all this season. They're dead last in the league for run creation against right-handed pitching, so there's a little bit of upside for Wells here. The thing about it is what we talked about with this Guardians team yesterday, they don't strike out much. They're the best team in the league for avoiding strikeouts against right-handed. They're at 19.4% overall for this confirmed lineup. The active roster was second best in baseball by 0.01, I think, percentage points against right-handed pitching. So they're very good at avoiding the strikeouts, but they're not very good at anything else. They haven't been hitting for power. They haven't been creating runs. You can see only Jose Ramirez, like we talked about yesterday, above average for run creation at 112 WRC plus, but that's not a good number for him. He's sitting at still 5,235 is a fair enough price for his talent, right? That is a reduced price for this player, but it's still not super cheap, and it's not as discounted as we've seen. Like we saw Byron Buxton drop to 2,800 earlier this year on FanDuel on the back of like a week-long struggle. Jose Ramirez has kind of struggled most of the season and is still at 35.52, so like it's not really baked into his pricing yet. 273, 349, 460 with a 187 ISO, 6 home runs, 5 stolen bases. He's struggling just as much as a lot of these other Guardians. It's just he's so much better than everybody else that it doesn't come through in the same way in the stats. So that's one to watch as the season goes on. But if you're going to Guardians bats, which I think you can against Wells, but it's still not one of my favorite spots. But I would look to Steven Kwan, I would look to Ahmed Rosario, Jose Ramirez up at the top there. Kwan I like as a correlated scoring piece. He doesn't do much else, but he puts the ball in play a ton. 9.4% strikeout rate last year, 10.7% this year, 12.4% walks. So he's getting on base at a decent clip, 348, but his average is way down from last year. His triple slash overall is way down, and his run creation dropped dramatically from last year. He was a pretty good correlated scoring piece. This year, 5% below average and just not driving the ball at all. Ahmed Rosario is driving the ball, 48.9% hard hits, not barreling it really, not elevating the ball for home run power, but he's been driving it. But a 101 ISO, a 73 WRC plus, like the 48.9% hard hits. I haven't looked at what his BABIP is, but it must be pretty tragic with that combination of factors. He strikes out a little bit too much at 24.6, doesn't walk enough, hasn't been involved in the offense. Josh Naylor, little bit of home run upside on the left side of the plate. He's got 7 on the year, a 168 ISO, but 18% below average creating runs. 2,900, 3,400 for his power profile is fine on the left side of the plate going up against this pitcher. You get a lefty in this Camden Yards park, so he doesn't have to worry about those park changes they made. Naylor's fine. If you're going to Guardians, I would include him. I would probably use Andres Jimenez if I'm building a lot of Guardian stacks out of the 6th spot there. The rest of this lineup, it's pretty bad. Gabriel Arias, 2,700, 2,400 multi-position eligibility. Nice little 44.2% hard hit rate, but only 200, 284, 365 with an 80 WRC plus over 95 plate appearances at this point. It's not a big sample, but it's growing, and he hasn't been great. But 2,400 hitting 5th, multi-3 position eligibility on FanDuel. You can use that. He's at least a viable piece if you're going that direction. Straw, Brendan Gallagher down the bottom, not really much to see here. You get a little bit of speed with Straw, but he's got to get on base to cash in on it. And he's 230, 313 on the front end of his triple slash, no power to speak of. They're all very cheap mix and match types if you go to the Guardian stack, but it's not a great spot. Going to the Orioles, like I said, I think I would roster shares of Orioles with as much as I think of Logan Allen on the other side of this one. There's tons of talent in this Orioles lineup, particularly in the top end of the lineup here. You get Mullins, Hayes, Santander, and Ryan Mountcastle, all at pretty good prices. No Adley Rutschman today. We've got James McCann doing the catching in the day game here and going up against the lefty. We talked about McCann yesterday. He's a former platoon specialist. Like, he's still better against a lefty than he is against a righty, but he's just not good at all anymore. 181, 213, 306 with a 125 ISO, 39 WRC plus, over 75 plate appearances, 2 homers. It's pretty weak. So let's see. see. Well, it got dinged pretty bad without Adley from your home model onto the site now. I don't remember what it was on the site, but yeah, that's. I would assume there's a bit of a dip there. Adley's definitely a decent bat. I think he had an 8 something in there. So yeah, that would we're replacing him with. I think McCann was in that lineup. We're replacing him with McKenna's 2.91. Yeah, so that's a big dip, 8.85 to 2.91 replacement bat there. So yeah, you get McCann doing the catching. Rutschman goes. They're not going to DH Rutschman. They'll throw Ryan McKenna in there instead. So interesting lineup, but definitely the top 4. Like I said, you've got power up there. You've got a little bit of speed up there. Cedric Mullins has both. You get tons of power in Ryan Mountcastle, Santander from both sides of the plate. Austin Hayes has had a nice season. 322, 364, 523 with a 201 ISO. Like Hayes up there, but yeah, that's definitely taking the catcher out. Is also positionally a ding to this stack in terms of DraftKings, where you've got a roster catchers. Rutschman to McCann, that's a big dip in catcher quality with this lineup too. So maybe it becomes a 3-man stack on DK instead of a 5-man, and you just focus on like 3 of the top 4 there. If you're going to the full stacks though, Ramon Urias in the 5 spot there, definitely a somewhat underrated hitter. If we're looking at Urias for this season, only 1 home run, 267, 358, 371, creating runs 10% better than average by virtue of his ability to get on base. And last year, 16 underappreciated home runs in 445 plate appearances. That's not bad for a guy who's never popular, is always super cheap, multi-position eligible. So I don't mind Urias there. But yeah, weak back end, McCann, Frazier, McKenna, and then struggling Jorge Mateo. He stole his 15th base, but yeah, just has been bad in May. So big dip in quality. You get him at a good price. There is still any given slate superstar caliber upside with Mateo. He can drive the ball. He can go deep. He can steal 2 bases in a game. So there's quality there. It's just been infrequent lately, and I think that's just the player he is. He's a roller coaster at the plate. Let's move on. We only got 6 games, so we can kind of meander through these a little bit, but I would like to leave a little bit of time to make my own lineups. Completely forgot that I had to do that yesterday. Got off the show, made myself a cup of coffee, wandered around, took the dog out, and then I was like, oh shit, got to do lineups. Forgot. Had only been focused on the slate for like 5 hours at that point before making lineups. I'm just dropping the confirmed Rangers lineup in here. So let's jump. We've got the Rangers are confirmed. Tigers are confirmed on both sides. This is the spot where I think the world is going to be drawing pitching from. Nathan Eovaldi going up against this Tigers team. I would have to imagine, I haven't seen anything across town at our pal Stochastics site. I have to imagine those guys would have him as their top projected pitcher, highest owned pitcher in this spot. He's very expensive, but he's earned those prices. 10-5, 11-2, 69 and a third innings in 10 starts. He's pitching very, very deep into ball games this year. 25% strikeout rate, a 4.2% walk rate, 3.28 xFIP, a 2.60 ERA, nice little 12.1% swinging strike rate, 29.5% CSW. The hard hits at 40.9%, yeah, that could be a little bit lower, but when that's coming on a 3.6 degree average launch angle, 4.8% barrels, 87 miles an hour, well, let's call it 88 miles an hour of average exit velocity, that amounts to like the 1.14% home run rate that we see right there. So Eovaldi, spectacular option going up against this low-end Tigers team. I think he's going to blow their doors off, put up a very nice score. I said this in the article, and I'm not one to call a complete game shutout, but if there's a dude who's going to do it today, this is your guy. He's already thrown 2 complete games, 1 complete game shutout, 1 complete game with 1 run allowed, and then he had his last 3 starts. The complete game with 1 run allowed was in his last outing, and then the 3 starts before that was like 7 innings, 8 innings, and 8 2/3 innings. He just is pitching very deep into games. So you're getting tons of innings pitched out of him. You're getting points from that. You're getting points from strikeouts, and he's pitching clean. So really like the spot for Eovaldi. Cue the 12-run Tigers outburst, of course, now that we've said that. But if you're going to the Tigers side, you want to look at some of these lefties. We called them out yesterday. They had a semi-productive day yesterday for some folks out there. I had a few shares of them, a few shares of the Reds that I called out in the article. I think the stack that I mentioned there and on the show for the Reds did well yesterday, but just didn't get anything in the right combinations, unfortunately, yesterday. But I think that's the way to approach this team again today, and pretty much in general. The righties have been bad for this team, but the lefties have been a little bit productive. McKinstry and Riley Green are the team's 2 best hitters this year. McKinstry 295, 409, 451 with a 146 WRC plus over 150 plate appearances. That's pretty nice. Nice production, 4 home runs, 10 stolen bases out of a guy that you don't really expect that from. But while he's doing it, cheap prices still, 4,000 with third base and outfield eligibility. That's a decent buy on the DK slate. He's cheap on FanDuel at second base. Riley, 4,800, 2,900 site to site in the outfield. I think that's a good spot if you're going to Tigers here as well. 5 home runs, 6 stolen bases on the season, 127 WRC plus in 219 plate appearances. You've got them bookending Javi Baez, who has just been, I think it's just low effort is really, like, I don't think he's just totally lost all his talent. I think he just doesn't give a shit. 3 home runs, 3 stolen bases, a .86 ISO, a 66 WRC plus. If you want him, he's there. He's not expensive, but he's not going to do much. Torkelson, I think he is trying. I just don't think it's been going well. You do have a 10.3% barrel rate and a 47.9% hard hit rate for Torkelson. If you're looking for, some kind of a prayer to hang your hat on with this kid, and hope that if you're a Tigers fan, and hope that they didn't completely burn that first overall pick on him, that's what you're looking at, right? You're looking at that for 2,800 on both sites at first base. That's the focus, is that premium contact. You hope that it starts to translate. So far, it hasn't. 4 home runs, a 128 ISO, not very good. Nick Maton's been somewhat effective for power. 5 home runs, 158 ISO though, a 73 WRC plus, sitting well below the Mendoza line. It's not great there. Akil Baddoo, somewhat interesting, 2,600, 2,500 in the outfield. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Had a productive day yesterday, so he's in play. Eric Haas has catcher power for cheap pricing. Andy Ibanez, Zach Short, doesn't close out really well here. They're all cheap. If you're building a ton of Tigers stacks for some reason, if you want to be super contrarian and build a whole hell of a lot of them, then yeah, you're mixing and matching these guys down here at the bottom. Otherwise, you don't really need them. Let's see. Serve asks, you think France does good today? I'm not seeing it. Yeah, we'll get to Ty France. I actually am showing, or not Ty France, JP France. I'm actually showing some power coming back the other way against France, but I do think he's got enough upside to pitch through it. So that one's a little bit of a both sideser for me there. Serve 5. Thanks for the question. Yeah, Larry, middle starter today. Is top owned on Stochastic. Interesting. So, all the projections, second innings of France by 1 point. Interesting. So they've got France projected that high for ownership. That's fascinating. All right, let's see. We talked through that side of this one. Oh, the Rangers side. Don't want to leave that out. Major stacking opportunity for the Rangers here. They were pulling, I think it was like a 4.80, if I'm remembering correctly, in the... This is my run totals board. Yeah, 8.5 on the run total for this game, and a 4.8 on the run total for the Rangers. I actually am surprised that's not over 5. With this team going up against Matthew Boyd here. Boyd, 5.74 ERA, 5.12 xFIP on the season, 20.9% strikeouts, 9.6% walks. He has a nice 13.4% swinging strike rate, but he doesn't do anything with it. So he's not getting that put away strikeout. He's walking too many guys, 28.1% CSW, so a little bit working out of the zone. Only at 31.3% hard hit rate, 7% barrels. It's a little bit difficult to square him up, but when guys do, they're still able to hit him for power. So I think the 3.21% home run rate, there's enough there, and then there's just plenty of run creation on the board for this team today. So I think we can go to the Rangers pretty safely and securely. It looks like the typical version of this lineup, so 1 through 6, we've just got stellar options up and down. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nathaniel Lowe, Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, Jonah Heim. Any one of those guys or all of those guys in combination, I think, are excellent options. They're fairly inexpensive for their talents. When you get Lowe in there at 46, Young in there at 49, and Heim at 43, they're cheaper over on the FanDuel slate in the relative pricing. So ton of upside for power. You've got 14 home runs out of Adolis Garcia, 11 out of Josh Young, 8 out of Marcus Semien. Corey Seager's already got 4 in just 93 plate appearances and has created runs 66% better than average in the small sample. Lowe is a very good hitter, 273, 356, 434. I expect a little bit more from the hit tool. He'll hit for a little bit more power as the season goes on. 5 home runs in the books, a 161 ISO, but just a dynamite correlated scoring option at first base in amidst all these excellent bats. The bottom end of this lineup, Robbie Grossman, Leody Taveras, and Bubba Thompson, all usable parts. There's a little bit of pop and speed there. 6 home runs for Robbie Grossman on the season, 2 homers, 5 stolen bases for Taveras, and 4 stolen bases for Bubba Thompson in 56 plate appearances. Thompson probably the weakest link there, but he's the cheapest price, obviously. So I think serviceable parts at the bottom of the lineup. You can wrap any one of those guys back around to the top if you want to. You can use them as cheap offsets at the end of a mid-lineup stack. There's a lot of ways to put the Rangers together. Wish they had a little bit of multi-position eligibility on that team. There's nobody in the confirmed lineup here that's multi-position eligible, but we'll take what we get. Still one of the highest scoring teams in the game and going up against a clunker of a pitcher. So I think we've got some good options there with Texas. One of these bargain pitchers could be used today because everyone will be on Evaldi. Yeah, we'll talk about that, Surf. I do think there are some good pitching options here. So yeah, that's I think that's potentially a good one that Larry mentioned, or at least one that's in play. But we'll get there. Let's move on to the next one. A couple of confirmed lineups here. This is not a spot where we're going to draw pitching. The Royals have Josh Stalman and then Mike Mayer, something like that. Either way, low end options for the Royals. I think Stalman's getting an inning, maybe two as an opener. 28.2% strikeout rate, but 14.1% walks out of the pen this year. 4.96 ERA. Was pitching a little bit better than had a clunker the other day where he gave up like 4 runs in a relief appearance. So that's just going to skew your line terribly. He might come out and strike out a few guys in an inning and 2/3, something like that. But I don't think we're getting even at 4,000 the DK points that we need. If you wanted to take that weird DK flyer at the cheap hitter price over there, so be it. But know what you're getting. I don't have it projecting well. I think this Cardinals lineup is so talented that they could absolutely get to him early and just ruin your day if you try and get away with that. So for me, it's just not the spot to do it. And then Mayer's just not a real viable option either. Just average-ish 31-year-old pitcher. So I'm looking at Cardinals bats here. I am not really intrigued by Adam Wainwright. He projects okay. You can see the 25 there. It's playable at that price, but you can also see in 21 1/3 this year, he's sitting at a 10.2% strikeout rate. He's induced a 4.5% swinging strike rate. Adam Wainwright came back for his last year of his career as a worse version of Zach Greinke right now. It's not pretty. This is a pitcher I love. I really like Waino. I hope he figures it out for one last year. He made 32 starts last year, put up a 17.8% swinging strikeout rate with a 6.7% swinging strike rate. That was already a bad ending. He's come back and it's been a little bit worse. So if you're not intrigued by, Dennis knows if I'm not intrigued by Wainwright, it's probably not a good Wainwright spot. I was one of the last believers here. So yeah, could he get there? Sure. He hasn't been pitching deep into ball games, which was another one of his attributes. In a former life, he would pitch fairly deep into ball games with that bulldog type approach. He's gone 5 2/3 in each of the last 2, but they haven't been pretty in his 4 starts. Could he figure it out against a Royals team that is not great? Sure. But there's plenty of contact available here for Kansas City. There's enough power in that lineup. There's enough quality in that lineup that I'm a little concerned. They do have a 25.9% swinging strikeout rate. 25.5% strikeout rate for the season for the confirmed lineup here. And it's kind of a weak back end with Massey, Furman, Nicky Lopez, and Drew Waters here. So maybe we find the quality for Adam Wainwright. I wouldn't call anybody completely insane if they threw a few darts at 61-71. That is the best endorsement I can come up with for Adam Wainwright on this slate. It's not a good spot. I don't think it's a short slate. Maybe I'll have a couple of shares, but you can hear it. You can hear that I'm not excited about doing this, so maybe I end up with a few shares, but it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be a lot of them. I will roster some Royals against him. I think there's some home run upside there. Nick Pratto, Vinny Pasquantino, Sal Perez, Bobby Witt, MJ Melendez. I like all of those hitters. Like I said, though, that bottom 4 hitters in the lineup, Massey's all right, but he's 231, 280, 322, .091 ISO at 63 WRC plus and 157 plate appearances. He's very cheap. He's got a nice 9.5% barrel rate and 46.3% hard hits, but I have no faith that he's going to help them turn the lineup over, and that's even more true of Freddie Freeman, Nicky Lopez, and Drew Waters. So I don't love the bottom part, and it dings their overall quality for me as a stack. But if I'm getting to the top 5 here and spreading it out in a few shares, they're at cheap prices. There's enough power potential. You can see we've got decent projections on the top 4 hitters over there. 9 home runs on the season for Pasquantino, 12 for Sal, 9 for Bobby Witt with 15 stolen bases. He's still at an 84 WRC plus despite those counting stats because of a 267 on base percentage, 232 batting average. He'll get that figured out. Witt is too good a player not to figure that out. 11.8% barrels, 42.6% hard hits. Those are both very nice numbers if you're rostering the shortstop. So I think he's a player that we think of as basically a star caliber type guy. guy. Maybe we haven't quite crowned him that yet because he's still young, but he's approaching that type of a level. So we're getting him at basically a discount here, I think, particularly on FanDuel, 3,300. That's a pretty good price. 54 on DK. Maybe he's not a $6,000 player on DK yet, based on some of these struggles that I just mentioned. So that feels about right. But I think the FanDuel price is probably a little bit cheap. Let's see. Serve, how's the bullpen for the Cards? Because it seems like the Royals like to put up hits in the late innings. I think the Royals are going to like to put up hits in any innings they can find them in this matchup, and there's going to be plenty of contact available against Wayno. But I can, let me see if I can pull that up here real quick. Let's take a look at the Cards bullpen. In, top of my head thinking, they do have a couple, premium power arms in that bullpen for sure. Starters, relievers, here we go. Active roster, and we'll go by, we'll take a look at their xFIP and their strikeout rates. I know you guys can't see this, by the way, but I'm just looking at it. So they're sitting 385 xFIP collectively for the active roster, and this is exciting viewing, I know, when you guys can't see any of it. And a 7th ranked 27.4% strikeout rate. So, like I was saying, there's a couple power arms, particularly on the back end of that bullpen with Ryan Helsley and Giovanni Gallegos, who, if you look at Gio Gallegos, by the way, I mentioned this at the top of the season when I was talking about my season-long teams, because he's on like every single one of them in my no-starter approach. He is a premium bullpen arm. If you look at his career stats, he basically adds up to one full season of Jake DeGrom. That's how goddamn good the guy is. So Gio Gallegos, big fan of his. So yeah, the Cards do have a pretty good bullpen, particularly in the late innings, particularly in high leverage situations. So it's not something that I would particularly be looking to attack. Talked about the Royals there. So yeah, we're looking at some Cards bats here for sure, though. I think they come in at pretty good prices on both sites. Only Goldschmidt above the $5,000 mark on DK. That's pretty cheap for some excellent bats, some excellent options. I know as a team they've kind of underperformed expectations for the season, but there is star caliber quality, at least through the top 4 in the lineup there, with usable parts from 5 through 9 on basically any given slate. And they've got a few guys missing. They've got kids that they Jordan Walker that they sent back down. So there's just talent galore in this St. Louis organization. They're going to get this figured out. And for now, I think we can absolutely go to them against Josh Stalmon and then Mike Mayers and the rest of the Kansas City bullpen here. Some good arms in the KC bullpen too, by the way, but definitely not to the level of the Cards. And I think the Cardinals' hitting quality can overcome that. So I'm looking heavily at Lars Nootbaar, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Gorman, Nolan Arenado. That 4-man group is dynamite for power. They're great for run creation. Arenado's sitting at a 99 WRC plus after a really slow start, but he really turned it on over the last few weeks. He had that 2-week stretch where he was hitting a home run every day, so he's got 9 on the season, a 99 WRC plus. This will get above average soon enough, maybe even today. The other 3 have been very, very good. Nootbaar, 4 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 19% better than average creating runs. Solid lefty on the in the leadoff role, 44% hard hit rate. Goldschmidt and Gorman, obviously, righty lefty at first base and second base, tons of power there. 10 home runs for Goldie, 13 for Nolan Gorman, who was just a great buy late in redraft leagues in season long. I don't know why people completely forgot about him year to year, but they did, and we've been capitalizing on it for season long fantasy. We've been capitalizing it early in DFS. So just a nice player at second base. Wilson Contreras, I mentioned it in the article, 10.7% barrel rate, 47.9% hard hits. That's what you like about Contreras. Hasn't really translated in a lot of his triple slash or his power numbers for the season this year. 11% worse than average creating runs, only 5 home runs, 220, 308, 366. We know he's been better than this in his career, so I think he'll turn that around, and based on the contact profile, you can believe in it. But he's a step down from like the Will Smiths, the Adley Rutschmans, the Sean Murphys of the world in terms of catchers at the plate for DFS purposes. But he's cheaper than those guys. So Contreras definitely in play. Brendan Donovan, good lefty stick, multi-position eligible on DK, first base and outfield for 3,000. Second baseman on FanDuel at 2,700. Hit a couple home runs, had a nice productive week to get his season back on track. Just a good quality lefty hitter. Not a major star by any means, but good for correlated scoring. Can steal you a base, can hit one out of the park every now and again. Paul DeJong has been on fire since his return to the lineup. 8 home runs, 277 ISO, 32% better than average creating runs. we know that he's not coming back late in his career as a super duper star all of a sudden out of nowhere, but he's a guy who's been productive throughout his career. So like the 8 home runs, not wholly unbelievable here. It's a small sample. It's quick to have gotten to that number, but he hit 19 in 400 and change plate appearances 2 years ago and has had productive home run seasons in the past. So the power is somewhat believable. Alec Burleson, productive guy to close out the lineup with Tommy Edman, who I really like as a wraparound play. 3,900 second base outfield eligibility on DK, $3,000 shortstop on FanDuel. You get a little bit of power, you get some speed out of Edmonds, so really like him to correlate with the top of the lineup in a wraparound play. Hopefully offset a little bit of cost, a little bit of ownership by attacking it that way if you're going to like a 5-man card stack. Let's see if we got these lineups in. Cubbies lineup is in. The Rays lineup is not yet in, so I will drop the Cubbies lineup in here real quick. This is where my lineups go. We've got projected lineups. These just live here. They get updated every day in the morning, and then the confirmed lineups go here, and the model knows which one to take for what really happens. If you're looking for the formula to strip the names and numbers from Shmanishy Shmabs, this is it. I'll leave that there for a sec. You can freeze frame and grab that. That'll help you strip it down to just the player name if you use Shmabs for your lineups. All right, so interesting pitching matchup in this one too. Taj Bradley, premium rookie who's performed really, really well going up against the Cubbies, who I think the Cubs should be better than they've performed. I realized it yesterday after talking about them, and I talk about their lineup a lot because there's a lot of good DFS pieces in it. They're dead last in the National League. 22 wins, a 4 win percentage. Hasn't been great in Chicago, but I think this lineup is better, and they've got some good run producers, run creators. It's a odd version of the lineup with Miles Mastroboni in the top spot today. He's cheap, but he's not been productive. 47 plate appearances, 44 WRC plus, 3 stolen bases. I guess if you're going to lead somebody off, might as well do it with a guy with a 277 on-base percentage. Maybe that's why they're not winning ball games. Nico Horner hitting second in Happ, Seiya Suzuki. Dansby Swanson dropping to the 5th spot in the lineup today, 4,700, 3,200. He hasn't been as good as he's been in seasons past, but I still really believe in Dansby Swanson. Like, if I'm looking for an affordable shortstop for a one-off spot, I kind of like 5th hitting Dansby here, 4,700, 3,200 across sites. Only 5 home runs, 4 stolen bases so far in 232 plate appearances, but a really nice 14.7% barrel rate, 42.7% hard hits. We know that he's got power. We know that he's got speed, and he's still been really involved in everything. 366 on base, 19% better than average creating runs, despite kind of bouncing along with some of these other numbers. So I really like Dansby there. Back end of the lineup, Mike Tauchman. I still really haven't figured out why Mike Tauchman is in this lineup day to day lately, but he's here. He's cheap. He's in the outfield. Min price on FanDuel if you want him. Can drive the ball from time to time, but he's a quad A type of a player, not a prospect or anything. Edwin Rios, super cheap, hasn't done much in 28 plate appearances this year so far. Matt Mervis, a premium prospect, nice little 13.2% barrel rate and 52.6% hard hits in his 66 plate appearances. 2 of those have turned into home runs. The rest hasn't done much. He's at 200, 273, 317. It's a very small 66 plate appearance sample. He was raking in the minors before they called him up, and they think a lot of his bat. So I wouldn't skip Mervis. He's nice and cheap, 2,300, 2,600 at first base. If you're building stacks of Cubs, I think you could go like 3, 4, 5, skip 6 and 7, and then building 8. Maybe grab the catcher if you wanted, or take Nico Horner along with that, or maybe you take Tauchman or Rios. My point is, I think you can end a stack on Matt Mervis. He's not really a wraparound type of a guy. He's more an ender type of a guy who can maybe hit one out with a few guys on base for you, rather than get on and be a correlated scoring piece with the top of the lineup. Tucker Barnhart, super cheap catcher at the bottom of the lineup there. Hasn't done much in 66 plate appearances so far this year. When was the last time he was relevant? Yeah, I was remembering. He wasn't overly good last year. 7 homers in 388 plate appearances in 2021. It's been kind of a while since Tucker Barnhart's done all that much of relevance. The Rays, the projected lineup. Oh, so I didn't really talk about Taj here, though. So Taj is going to be going up against that lineup. So it's a little bit of a lower end version of the Cubbies lineup. There's plenty of strikeouts, 25.6% strikeouts in that lineup today. Taj, 33.7% strikeout rate over 24 and a third and 5 starts. Sign me up for some of that. 9,900, 9,600. I think we definitely roster this pitcher against this team. 4% walk rate, a 1.15 whip in his first 5 starts in his major league career. That's pretty damn good. 4.44 ERA is a little bit betraying the nice 2.81 xFIP on the season. He's probably somewhere in between. In reality, he's gotten dinged a little bit for home run upside. 3.96% home run rate, 40.3% hard hit rate, 89.7 miles an hour of average exit velo. But I think a lot of this pitcher, he's a premium prospect, one of the more highly regarded pitching prospects in the league, drawing a decent projection. And these pitchers, that was the thing I was trying to remember. These pitchers are also going to have the wind at their back today. It's another day where the wind is blowing in toward home plate. It's not crazy. It's not one of those days where the run total's cut down to like 6.5 because of it, but it is a wind at the back day for the pitchers. So a ding to the bats on both sides in this one, and a little bit of a bump to the pitching. So I'll definitely take out shares of Taj Bradley. I think he's a strong option on this slate. I also think that Marcus Stroman is a good option on this slate. Stroman has been pitching fairly well this season. 2.95 ERA, a 3.70 xFIP. He's allowed just a 1.97% home run rate, and that's something that he's sustained over time. He's good at limiting home run upside. He's good at keeping the ball down, keeping the ball in the ballpark. A 4% barrel rate, only a 3.1 degree average launch angle this season. So I don't really mind the 42.6% hard hits. That might lead to a little bit of additional BABIP against him, but it doesn't go over the wall, which is what I care about a lot here. We're tangling with the Rays offense if we go to shares of Marcus Stroman. Obviously, we know that's been a dangerous proposition all year long. Every single hitter in the Rays lineup is at least at league average, and there's only one guy at league average for run creation. That's Brandon Lau. He's sitting at a 100 WRC plus for the season. Everybody else is at least 25% better than average creating runs. That's Christian Bethancourt down toward the bottom of the lineup. Outside after him, I think everybody else is like 40% better than average. This team has just been bananas good this year. A lot of guys playing above their heads. Several guys I expect to come back to earth. Some guys I think might actually sustain this level of production on the long term. Like Josh Lowe, I think is, maybe not this outrageously good, but I think he's taken a nice step forward this season. I don't think he's, I think he's going to sustain a lot of the premium contact. He might not finish the season. Like right now, he's got 11 homers and 12 stolen bases, so he's probably not going to finish the season with 50 homers and 50 stolen bases. But if he finished around 30 homers, if he finished with a 30-30 season, it wouldn't be astounding. It's probably going to be more like 25, 25-30, something like that. But he's having a nice little year. So I like Josh Lowe there. Just top to bottom, you're dealing with a tough lineup, but you're dealing with it with a pitcher who's good at keeping the ball down, good at limiting opposing offense. So I like Stroman. I like him for his average depth of start, 64 innings and 11 starts. So he's going to pitch a nice game here probably. You could certainly get dinged, and I will take out shares of the Rays against him, but I'm not going to go crazy with the offenses on either one of these teams because of that wind factor. We did see in the last wind games and with more wind blowing in that guys can hit the ball out of the park. It's not saying nobody's ever going to be able to hit a ball into this much wind. Oh my God, they can't hit home runs here, but it is going to handicap it a little bit. So with that in mind, and with Stroman on the mound, I'll temper my expectations for the Rays while still rostering some of them. You can see we've got 6 green dots up at the top of the lineup here, so there is definitely some premium quality coming through in the model here. We've got nice pricing, nice multi-position eligibility on multiple players on the FanDuel slate. You get Taylor Walls at 3 positions for only $3,400 over there. He's been absolutely raking. He's a guy I expect to come back to earth a little bit. 7 home runs, 14 stolen bases, a 246 ISO, 141 WRC plus. I don't know that he sustains that on 5.6% barrel rate, 33.7% hard hits. That guy will come back to earth a little bit, but the price is still nice for a guy who's producing this much in this lineup at the end of the lineup with multi-position. So I like that. I like Jose Siri. He had a nice little week. He's sitting at an 18.6% barrel rate in 111 plate appearances. 9 of those have turned into homers. Just really like this Rays lineup up and down, but I'm going to try and avoid it at least to some degree today. I think that's worth it. So I like both pitchers. I'll get to some shares of the bats, but if I'm ranking it, I'm calling it a 4 corners game, but I'm calling it with less appealing corners on the hitting side while I get to decent shares of both pitchers. Let me take a swig of coffee. This one's printed on the wrong side. This was art by Summer today. Summer's my niece. This was her artwork. I think it was around Halloween of last year. You guys can see that. Her art teacher, she goes to a public grammar school. She's in 2nd grade. Her art teacher had a really good idea. She puts they do a project in class. She puts all the shit up online so the parents can go and, oh, we want a coffee mug, we want a poster, and blah, blah, blah. And she gets a little kickback from that. It's pretty smart deal. Way to capitalize on being an art teacher, which is, I'm sure, not a well-paid position. And an important position. Support the arts. Let's move on. The Twinkies against the Astros. Which lineups do we have here? We have neither of these lineups confirmed. Last 2 games to talk about, 20 minutes before the Stochastic show starts up on the other channels and everybody bails out to go watch that. But I appreciate everybody hanging out. Hit the old like, hit the subscribe button. Those things help me out, help you out when I go live. My shows are going to be, somewhat variable. I'm going to try and duck and dodge around the Stochastic schedule so that you guys don't have to choose between, and so that I'm not stepping on toes over there or anything. I'm trying to do this as harmoniously as possible. So hit the subscribe button. That way you guys get those little notifications when I schedule these shows, and you know when I'm going live. I'll always drop the links and everything into our Discord there. Make sure you join the Discord. If you're watching this, you haven't joined our Discord community, the link's up on the top of the site there. You can sign up, join over our Discord, and hang out and chat with us. I drop some things in the Discord that we don't necessarily talk about in articles or on shows from time to time. There's always a good spot to ask questions. I'm around all day, as anybody in the chat can testify to. So let's look at this one. Somebody was asking about JP France earlier. I think he comes in at a nice price. I think he's got upside in this spot. You're going up against the Twins lineup that the projected lineup has a 27.9% current year strikeout rate. You can throw basically any pitcher up against that strikeout rate, and he's got at least some upside to exceed his current year output, right? So JP France in 4 starts, 21 innings, 20.2% strikeout rate, only 5.6% walks. That's pretty good. He's limiting free passes. A 3.43 ERA is nice. A 4.33 xFIP isn't betraying him too much, 0.9 differential there in terms of runs allowed. What I don't like with France is the premium contact he's allowed. He's made 4 starts. He allowed 3 home runs in one of those games and 2 home runs in each of 2 others, and then was clean in the fourth one. So it's a little bit wonky based on a small sample, but we're dealing with a 5.62% home run rate, 90 miles an hour of average exit velo, a 10.8% barrel rate allowed. I think based on the price for DFS purposes, we can get away with it. At price, even if he gives up a homer or 2, he could find a serviceable score, particularly at 7,000 as an SP2 on DK. 8,200, if he does that on FanDuel, you're probably going to get burnt. But I think it's worth the shots. I think he could come out, have a serviceable 5-inning start, chase a win bonus here, going up against Sonny Gray, not the greatest proposition, and his lineup has been struggling. So the win bonus is a little bit bigger of a question than this might normally be in an Astros versus Twins game. The quality start, I think, is a little bit in question on FanDuel. 21 innings in 4 starts, not giving you a ton of depth. And you can see in the home run model here, we are definitely showing a lot of power coming through to the Twins side of things. So that's where I get a little bit concerned about the Twins. But I would say I would definitely call out a little bit of caution with this lineup. This could be one of those cases where we're seeing a team at the top of the power index on the site and showing all this home run upside, but we're really just seeing a lot of individual home run hitting potential where they might not string together a lot of sequencing. They might not string together a lot to pay off a full stack, right? So maybe this is a spot where we grab one-offs. Maybe we grab some 3-mans. Maybe we grab some JP France shares on the other side. I think you can do a lot with this game. And there's a few guys in this lineup on both sides, both sites rather, that have multi-position eligibility. There's a lot of guys at cheap prices with star caliber qualities. So I like going to this Twins lineup quite a bit. So I'm going to have a good amount of it, but it's going to be in, with somewhat tempered expectations, I guess, in terms of their ability to string together a big score. So I think I could get a few individuals with big scores, but I don't know if I get one of those games where 7 different guys have scores that could help you win a slate in the lineup, right? We certainly might with all this power on the board, but it's not a lock. So I'm not saying run out there and just, stack the Twins 150 times. I do really like Joey Gallo at the top of this lineup. Everybody knows that. He's my home run pick for the day. Love Joey. Monster home run mark, 11 on the season, 20% barrel rate, 60% hard hit rate. Nice little turnaround for him. I don't care about the 207, 338, I don't care about the 207. The 338 is fine. Could be a little bit higher, but 15.9% walk rate. That's where he distinguishes himself from some of these other free swingers. he gets on base at a really nice clip most of the time and walks at an aggressive clip, and then tattoos the ball when he makes contact. 331 ISO, 139 WRC plus. You get Eduardo Julian in the second spot potentially. This is a projected lineup, 2,900, 2,500. Nice cheap second baseman with a decent stick as a prospect. 4 home runs on the season, a 286 ISO in a very small 58 plate appearance sample. But I expect big things from him. I think he's a nice player who they're probably going to figure out how to keep him around once Polanco comes back to this lineup. I think he's productive enough for them that they're going to want him there. Carlos Correa, we've talked about it multiple times. I still fully believe in the turnaround for this player. I think he's going to get there. 201 plate appearances, haven't been great. 6 home runs, 95 WRC plus on the season. Buxton also has not been, 10 home runs is fine. 230 ISO is great. 116 WRC plus, fine. You're 16% better than average. But I expect a little bit more than that from Byron Buxton when he's healthy and actually on the field. Nice little 14.85 in the home run model. Certainly tons of power upside. But you can see in the contact profile, and this is, I think, where part of his problem's coming from. Last year, 16.4% barrels, 50.2% hard hits. This year, that's dipped to a still good but not great 11.8% barrels and a just average 39.5% hard hits. So he's lost a lot in terms of the premium contact. A lot of that is probably just happenstance. He goes through a little bit of a slump and the numbers look off, then comes roaring back, hits 5 home runs in a week, and those numbers are going to look wildly different. So that's probably going to turn around in the long term, but that's where a little bit of the lack of quality has come from for Buxton, I think. Alex Kirilloff, affordable lefty, first base and outfield eligibility on the DK slate. 3 home runs on the season. The idea of some power upside, certainly affordable on the left side of the plate going up against JP France. Nice little home run mark for him. Max Kepler, if you get him back in the lineup, I love Max at a nice price here, 3,900, 2,700 across sites. Outfielder, 6 home runs on the season already in 114 plate appearances, 232 ISO. It was a nice little power bounce back from Max. He had struggled a little bit for power last year, but bounced back to a 13.9% barrel rate, 48.1% hard hit so far this season. You can see last season, over the full season, 7.1% barrels and 39.9% hard hits. So it was not quite the output we expected from Max. So if he's in the lineup, I can expect some nice power there, and he might not be as popular as some of his teammates. So I think you can get a nice little play out of that. Kyle Farmer is okay, multi-position eligible, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, cheap. Willie Castro has had a nice little season, actually. 4 home runs, 8 stolen bases filling in here. 107 plate appearances. Let's not go nuts. It's Willie Castro. But he checks in 2,500, 2,300. 2 positions on DK, 3 positions on FanDuel. That's a serviceable part for sure. Christian Vasquez not going to give you a lot at the bottom. Hasn't done a lot in recent seasons. He's kind of like... I was going to say he's kind of like a light version of Martin Maldonado, where you get that weird, low-owned, zero-owned Martin Maldonado slate-bending home run from time to time, but Vasquez hasn't even given you that lately, so don't love it for Christian Vasquez down at the bottom of the lineup. Twins side of things on the mound. Sonny Gray. Nice season for Sonny Gray. Don't trust him at all. Lot of just distrust built up over a long time with Sonny Gray, but he's been a very good pitcher through his career. Like, a lot of it is unfair bias on my part when I think about him. Fortunately, I've got my model. I've got these tools that help cut through that and alleviate that when I actually build these lineups. 29.2% strikeout rate over 54 and a third for Sonny in 10 starts this year. A 1.82 ERA. The 3.34 xFIP is who he really is. Maybe not even quite that good, but the 1.82 ERA is just sparkling on the surface right now. But he's been very, very good. Has not given up a home run yet this season, which is just bonkers for this pitcher. That's in spite of a 42.4% hard hit rate, 90.1 miles an hour of average exit velo. There are home runs coming. The Astros might be the team to find some. So if we're looking, I will definitely have some Sonny Gray. I think the price is right. 10,000, 10.2. He's a little bit cheap relative to Nate Eovaldi at the top of the board. So we can definitely get some Sonny in our lives here. I'll have some Astros, but they've been underperforming. The team has not been as good as you would typically expect from the Astros. They were missing Jose Altuve for most of the season. He's only made 31 plate appearances. He's been terrific since coming back. Already has a home run on the board. Created runs 93% better than average in that tiny sample. But like Jeremy Pena hasn't been great. I know he was good yesterday after we called him out for sitting on the same home run and stolen base total for the last month or so. So up to 8 homers, 6 stolen bases, a 192 ISO, 101 WRC plus. That's fine. It's reasonable. Yeah, Steve Leibowitz, exactly. Yeah, Terry cannot cleanse Sonny Gray being awful on the Yanks from his head. That is absolutely correct, buddy. But there were clunkers, otherwise with Sonny. He's got just those games where it seems like the world is on him, and that's the game where he gets the down dip in his roller coaster, and that goes way down into a big valley there when he goes bad. It feels like he always goes really bad, but the highs are very high, and their highs are much more consistent than the dips with Sonny. So it is definitely unfair bias on my part that I'm going to look past and roster him in there. So Jose Abreu, no, he doesn't, Den, because Jose Abreu doesn't get his first home run of the year off Sonny because he got it already. Jose Abreu got on the power board. He's got one in the books. Got it, I forget whether it was yesterday or the day before, but he got it over the weekend. So he's at one home run, a .051 ISO, and a 50 WRC plus for the season for poor Jose Abreu. But it's nice to see him, fingernails clinging to the edge of the earth as he's struggling not to completely fall off of it. It was yesterday, all right, yeah. So, yep, so Jose Abreu is on the board. I was gonna touch on that, but, we've got our power hitters at the top of the lineup with Altuve certainly has power for the diminutive second baseman. Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, tons and tons of power in both of those bats. Alvarez has been great, 14 home runs, a 321 ISO, 76% better than average creating runs. Tucker's been a bit of a power slump, up to a 9% barrel rate, 46.2% hard hits, 7 home runs, a 166 ISO, 7 stolen bases. We expect more from Kyle Tucker at this point. 30 home run hitter, and a solid double-digit stolen bases are what we'll probably have at the end of the year. But the power has been out a little bit. I'm not concerned about it. I'm going to roster him. I'm going to include him. Alex Bregman has kind of scuffled this season. Jose Abreu has scuffled badly this season, not just for power. Last year in Chicago, he got by not hitting for nearly as much power as he used to because he was still good for run creation. He was like 123 WRC plus, I think, or 20ish% above average. Still hit for average. Hit the ball squarely, just wasn't hitting home runs. And then this year that just fell apart. 214, 272, 265, and 50% worse than average creating runs. So that's just been bad. And it's 3.4% barrels, 36.5% hard hits. That's down from 9.5% and 51.7% last year when he was already losing power. So it hasn't been good, but hey, maybe he's come back to life and going to go on a big tear here. I still believe that there's talent in that bat. Like, he's not 47 years old. I think he's 35, 36 at this point. It certainly starts to fade at that point in a hitter's career, but I don't think it's just totally vanished year over year that quickly. It might have, but I think we could see him going on a bit of a run. Not necessarily get outrageous, but I think he could produce over the second half of the season or the second 2/3 of the season. Corey Julks, Jake Myers, Martin Maldonado, take him or leave him. I don't really care at the bottom of the lineup. Julks is fine, 276, 295, 396, 11% worse than average creating runs. Jake Myers, 145 plate appearances, 13% better than average creating runs, 4 home runs, stolen base. They're mix and match parts for cheap prices in the outfield. And Maldonado's a cheap catcher who will hit you that occasional oddball unowned home run. He's got 3 of them on the season. They're slate benders usually when it happens. It's not one that you want to go out of your way to roster a ton of shares of Martin Maldonado, though. Last game on deck. Biggest run total on the board. It's a 10. It's not like, a massive outlier when there's a 9.5, a couple 8.5s, but biggest number on the board out in the desert. Rockies against the Diamondbacks. I do think somebody mentioned Ryan Nelson as a potential source of value at 67 and 6,900 across sites. I think there's just enough on the bone there that you could get away with it. It's not great. We're talking about a pitcher who's got a 16.4% strikeout rate in 52 innings, 10 starts this year, a 5.02 ERA, a 4.58 xFIP, a 1.37 WHIP, only inducing 8.4% swinging strikes, only a 24.3% CSW, 91.4 miles an hour of average exit velo, 40.5% hard hits. These are all not great attributes, but he comes at a really cheap price against a team with, I think they're 26th in baseball, if I'm remembering my article correctly, with a 95 WRC plus against righties this year. Just not a good lineup for Colorado. They're on the road, so, a lot of that run creation certainly comes in home games for this team. They suffer when they're on the road. I think you can get away with some shares of Ryan Nelson here. It's not great. I like it better as an SP2 at 6,700 on the DK slate. I do not expect him to pitch to the quality start. He might pitch effectively enough to pitch there, but I don't think he's going to get you 6 innings. I think he could get you 5 innings and a win bonus,
At 6,900, is that enough on FanDuel? You would probably need Nate Eovaldi to not go completely bust, but not put up a dominant start at price. Then maybe there's enough where you're buying a bat that makes up that difference based on Ryan Nelson's price. So I think if you're looking for a value pitcher, uncomfortably, you can see where he's projected. I mean, 16.4, right? That's not a good FanDuel projection by any means. So let that set the expectation. But I think at price, if you want a value play, he's on the board. Maybe you look around other sites and see where they've got him and help you evaluate the play. I certainly will be checking where our pals over at Stochastic, for example, have Ryan Nelson today. Not great there, but not great on the Rockies side in terms of the bats. Rocks have been lousy all season. Jurickson Profar sucks. I don't know why he's in the majors at this point. Wasn't on the team until spring training. They had this guy who's hitting 7th today, Nolan Jones, all lined up to take that role and run with it. And then they signed Jurickson Profar after a semi-productive World Baseball Classic. Brought him in so that he could hit 249, 322, 409 with an 84 WRC plus at the top of the lineup every day. I don't really get it. But he's going to be there probably, hitting behind Charlie Blackmon. Blackmon's had a nice productive little season. 287, 369, 466, 13% better than average on the left side of the plate, creating runs. 5 home runs on the season. A little bit of unexpected power from a guy who had kind of turned into more of a slap hitter, which I still think is what he is, right? 6.5% barrels, that's all right. 32.7% hard hits. He's more a slap hitter, correlated scoring type, get on base, but he's been productive this year, so I wouldn't skip Blackmon if I'm going to Rockies. Chris Bryant has kind of underperformed, 91 WRC plus on the season, 5 home runs. I expected more from Chris Bryant when he came to Coors, honestly. He was hurt all last season. Maybe there's still some lingering effects from that. He's very cheap if you want to go to a high-quality hitter who I still do believe in. I think you could get away with Chris Bryant, but it hasn't been great, and he's sitting at a 31.8% hard hit rate on the season, turning himself into a slap hitter as well. Elias Diaz has been very good as a catcher. Sneaky little catcher play. He's 5,300. That'll probably keep ownership off of him. If he hits cleanup, it's viable. 333, 387, 519 with a 186 ISO, 131 WRC plus, 6 homers on the year. I like that. Ryan McMahon, productive lefty bat with 7 homers. Nice little 14% barrel rate, 49.6% hard hits out of him. Randall Grichuk, 48.5% hard hits, 366, 424, 512 with a 139 WRC plus in 92 opportunities since coming back to the lineup. I think there might actually be more quality from here to here than from here to here. Right? I kind of like the Bryant, Diaz, McMahon, Grichuk, Jones stack if I'm going to Rockies. I'll sacrifice Charlie Blackmon to the DFS gods to avoid Jurickson Profar and take some of that power on both sides of the plate that these guys offer at cheap prices. I kind of like that mid-lineup stack if I'm going to Rockies here. Nolan Jones, I mentioned at the top. Productive minor league hitter so far. 3,200, 2,600, good prices. First base, outfield on DK. Third base. Whew. Been talking too much. Third base on the FanDuel slate for 2,600. Was raking in the minors in when after they sent him back down. I think he had like 12 home runs or something like that. So really decent little left-handed power bat there. Harold Castro, Ezekiel Tovar, take him or leave him at the bottom of the low-end Rockies lineup. I think you've got a lot of quality coming to you if you're looking at Diamondbacks bats here. They are the highest implied team total on the slate. I think it was like 5.9. Implied runs for the Diamondbacks. Going up against Carl Kaufman. He only costs 4,800, 6,000. I do not think he's in play as a value option or anything else. 14.3% strikeout rate, 11.9% walks in 8 2/3 in his 2 starts, a 9.35 ERA, a 6.0 xFIP. If you're looking for a guy with the biggest xFIP differential on the slate, that's a 3.5 run xFIP differential, but it's not good when the xFIP is still at 6. It has not been pretty, allowing 94.7 miles an hour of average exit velo, 53.3% hard hits, only a 2.38% home run rate on that somehow, but that's going to change. This is a bad pitcher going up against a pretty respectable lineup. The Diamondbacks, maybe they're not great, but I think there's a lot of capable bats and a lot of DFS capable bats, which is what we really care about here. You can see in the projected lineup, the top 5 hitters here, all above 40% hard hits, all with semi-decent barrel rates and decent home run totals. I really like getting to, if I'm looking for a 4-man, like a Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker, Lourdes Gurriel in there, but I wouldn't skip Pavin Smith necessarily. Like, I think he's serviceable if you wanted to skip Marte or work in like a non-straight line stack. I think you can use Pavin Smith up top. Josh Rojas has low-end power, but a little bit of speed. The memory of an ability to get on base, even though he's at 309 for this season, 74 WRC plus. He hasn't been great, but he's a correlated scoring option who can swipe you a base. Gabe Moreno, Jake McCarthy, and Geraldo Perdomo. Perdomo's come back to earth after that outrageous hot start that he had, but he was like a premium prospect coming into last year. Ended up, I think, below the Mendoza line and just terrible last season over a full season, like 600 some odd plate appearances. Then came roaring back to life early this season with outrageous numbers. You can see he's still at 304, 403, 522 with a 217 ISO, 150 WRC plus, and 138 plate appearances. He's probably somewhere in between like that level of production and last year's, with probably closer to, you know, these current numbers. I think he's going to be good. I don't think he's going to be like relegated to being a utility man, but he's not going to be the outrageous performer that we saw earlier this season either. So take or leave some shares of Perdomo down the bottom. McCarthy's got mid-range power and a ton of speed. He got sent back down also earlier this season after debuting with the team. They had brought up Dom Fletcher, who then got hurt. They brought McCarthy back just this past week. Very cheap, $3,000, $2,400 for a guy who could hit one out of the park, could steal you 2 bases in a game. So I wouldn't skip McCarthy if I'm building a lot of Diamondback stacks, and I think building a lot of Diamondback stacks is a good idea on this slate. So you can get to that, but like I kind of flew past, the quality is really here. Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker, Lourdes Gurriel, a lot of power, 8 home runs, 14 stolen bases for Carroll, 11 home runs for Christian Walker after starting the first month of the season completely flat. He came roaring back to life. 229 ISO, 105 WRC plus, 11 home runs for him. And Lourdes Gurriel, nice little season for Gurriel too. He's sitting at 315, 366, 551, 236 ISO, creating runs 44% better than average to lead the team. 8 home runs on the season. Nice turnaround for power. He didn't lose his hit tool last year, but I think he only hit, what was it, 6 home runs all of last year? 5 home runs all of last year. The power was totally out for him last year, so it's nice to see him already 3 home runs ahead of last year's home run total in only 194 plate appearances. So I think we're going Diamondbacks pretty enthusiastically. And I think that brings us to the end here. So let me scroll over, take a quick look over here at where the pitchers rank. This is our weird one for the day, my Logan Allen projection. Like I was saying when we were talking about that game, about those teams, if you guys are picking a guy off the top of the list to not trust me on, that would be the guy to not trust me on. I don't fully trust that he's going to be that good. I will have him. I do think it's a spot where you can roster him. I think he'll be low owned. The DK price is better than the FanDuel price, obviously. I'm a little bit more worried about it on FanDuel at that price and with his ability to, you know, potentially get the quality start there. But based on my projection, I've you know, my model's been good enough this year that I got to trust it. So I'll be going there. But if you're taking a guy out of the top of that list, I think that's your guy. Nate Eovaldi, if you told me you were going 150 shares of Nate Eovaldi today, I wouldn't call you crazy. I think he's got that good an opportunity. I think he's that far ahead of the field here. So it's just a great spot for him. Despite the pricing, you gain ground on Taj Bradley, Marcus Stroman, Sonny Gray, obviously, in terms of being able to roster bats. And the price differentials between FanDuel and DK, particularly on Marcus Stroman, are pretty nice. I think you get Stroman as a nice buy on that DK slate at just 8,300. The rest of the board, we talked about France potentially being a value. I guess Waino's probably in that conversation too. 7,100, 6,100 going up against that Kansas City lineup. You got to get the turnaround. We gotta be on the right day for it. So I don't fully trust this one either, even though it's a low end projection. I'm not sure where I'll end up on Waino. I'll probably have more Tyler Wells than I will Adam Wainwright. Despite the much higher price, I do think there's a little bit of opportunity for Wells here. Maybe find a couple strikeouts, against the low strikeout Cleveland lineup, but certainly a lineup that he could keep in check in terms of runs. Maybe he gives you 6 clean innings and a quality start. So that's where we're at. I don't need these pitchers at all. That's where we're at for pitchers. We talked about the bats. There's a bunch of content up on the site as well. So the site is rotoscouts, gang. Hit the old like, hit the subscribe there. We're 12:03. We went an hour and change. Jump over to our pals over at Stochastic, give them a little love, watch that show as well. I'm sure they'll have some good content for you guys also. I'm going to go build some lineups. Good luck out there today, everybody.